Welcome back to another episode of the Caffeinated Christian Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Willard, and I'm sitting here with Pastor Mike Rigglesworth, and your man, Bradley, the man with no last name, is with us. He is on time this time. No need to send out the weird Bradley Slender Man.
The Bradley signal. Yes.
Signal out in the sky. He is here, and he looks like he has actually coffee today. So we're going to jump right in because we have a good episode and we don't want to spend too much time talking in the beginning. So let's toss it over to Bradley to talk about the kind of coffee we are drinking today. Bradley, what do you have?
So I have Orange Cat coffee.
There it is.
I don't think it gets enough love from us because this is like, and this might be just me being in a really good mood. Because Dune was awesome. But like, if I have an everyday coffee like Bones or like Black Rifle, I want a coffee that I bring out when the guests come over, you know? And Orange Cat coffee. Orange Cat coffee is phenomenal.
Fancy.
Wow, what flavor?
The pecan pie one.
Okay, is that
what I have right
still, Bradley, is that still from the box I gave you?
Yeah. I was like trying not to use it all up, so I made it a little bit light today. But yeah, it's so good. I try my hardest not to grab it every day.
Beautiful.
Mike, what do you have?
Today I am drinking Donut Shop coffee. It is a K-cup.
I like Donut Shop.
Is that the Dunkin'?
It's not Dunkin's. It's just like a generic brand. I think it's Keurig brand.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, but it's quite
Is
good.
it the breakfast blend?
No, I don't think so. I honestly don't know. I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
I'm not
Mike
informed.
just pressed the start button and put a cup underneath, and whatever came out, came out.
That's all I did. I grabbed a K-cup. I looked at it before I put it in. Said, this seems good. I'm going to drink it.
Yeah, he doesn't know what he's drinking right now. He just knows it kind of tastes like coffee and it's dark looking.
That's right. That's right.
So today I actually had to go do some shipping out at FedEx and the post office. So I grabbed a Starbucks coffee this morning. They refurbished one of the coffees in the little town near me. Refurbished one of the Starbucks cafes, and it looks really fancy. And
I was gonna say you're drinking refurbished coffee. That sounds terrible.
Yeah. They made it look like you are in there to spend $30 per cup of coffee. Put it that way.
Yeah.
And so I am drinking their Nitro Cold Brew. And Bradley, they put the sticker on correctly. They didn't put it underneath the hole that I drink out of.
Ryan, I was praying for you the whole time.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I get ticked off when they do that. We talked about that in one of these episodes. But yeah, Nitro Cold Brew. I put a little sweet cream in there. It's only like 70 calories for the grande size. That's the mid-size, so not bad. So I'm excited. I saved it. I don't know. I wanted it earlier, then I took 2 sips, and then you kind of go,
Right.
One of those things, and I'll save it for later. No, it comes cold. So
okay.
Yeah. Okay. It comes out one of those fake beer nozzle things for the.
Well, I didn't know with the cup if the cup was different if you got a cold coffee or a hot coffee.
Yeah, no, it's in the plastic cold ones.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we have a great episode. Mike, I'm going to toss it over to you because we are in part 2 of our AI series. So, Mike, what do we have for the listeners?
We are.
Today?
Well, if you tuned into part 1, if you didn't tune into part 1, you need to tune into part 1 because it's just a lot of fun. I thought we raised a lot of interesting and necessary questions around AI. We talked through some of our concerns about what this technology might do to society. So it's worthwhile to have you take the time to go listen. So please go listen to that episode if you haven't done so already. But today we are going to be putting AI to the test and give you kind of a framework for what we're going to be doing for this episode. Each of us have 4 questions that we're going to ask an AI program, and we're going to see what it spits back out to us. And we came up with the questions ahead of time, but we have no idea how AI is going to respond. So everything that you get is our response in real time, totally fresh. It's going to be interesting. And right before we started recording, I decided it would be interesting because it has a more political slant. Like Bradley had brought this up to the group, that we would use Google Gemini as our AI to ask questions. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one question from each of us. So, Ryan, I'm going to start with your question.
Perfect.
And so this is the first one. Very deep question, not surprising from Ryan. And this is the question. If theological determinism is true, do you fear that the answers you are giving those who ask your questions are reliable?
I'm speaking directly to the Chat GPT AI right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Something that you should, when you're plugging these questions in, don't evoke emotion like fear, because the AI will might spit something weird at you.
Okay.
It
Good.
might say like, I can't fear, so I'm not going to answer the question.
Gotcha. All right. So, if theological determinism is true, do you fear that the answers you are giving those who ask these questions are reliable? Well, we're just going to see how ChatGPT responds, or Google Gemini, rather, responds.
Bradley, I can see it big. How dare you attack me and just throw pictures of like swords on the screen?
All right.
Yeah, I don't have the button on the board to push the how dare you.
The how dare you, yeah.
All right. So here is the response. Gemini says, I'm not capable of experiencing emotions like fear, right? So whether theological determinism is true or not does not affect my ability to provide reliable answers. However, it is an interesting thought experiment to consider the implications of theological determinism for the reliability of information, including the information I provide. And so, ChatGPT gives us two perspectives on the issue. Determinism and reliability. And it says, if everything is predetermined, including my responses, then the reliability of my answers is already established by whatever force or being is doing the determining. That would ensure my answers are accurate within the predetermined plan. Okay. So far?
Yeah.
Makes sense? Alternatively, if determinism exists, but my responses are not predetermined, then the reliability would depend on the factors influencing my responses, such as the training data and algorithms used in my creation.
Right. I don't know how, if determinism exists, any of its factors can't be determined. So that's another weird question to ask it.
Right.
No, it's. I kind of like that. I kind of like its response. It kind of it knows what it is, basically. That it. I don't know where the fear comes in. Whether it's fearful or not of their answer, I don't know what that means. But basically, it seems that it's stating that if everything's determined, then whoever is telling me to spit out my answers, it's going to be kind of whatever they want.
Right.
And then the question is then, where does the reliability fall to? And that will be on what or who is determining these sorts of things. And I do find that interesting, because I do think that has some sort of, at least maybe, a sense of soft determinism in the algorithm, right? Where it has been predetermined to at least have some sort of borders or restrictions or questions it can investigate in its investigation of how to answer stuff. So I do think it at least brings up a good question of the reliability of these AI systems, given, this is sort of what I was going with, given who's creating the system and the restrictions and borders they're putting on. And so that's sort of where I was leaning towards when I came up with this question, is because we talked about this in the last episode. Who are the ones programming these systems?
Right.
And can they have some sort of bend or lean in how this system responds? And it seems even AI's understanding of determinism in some sense agrees with the fact that, yes, it will, that I'm just not going to spit out objective answers, because whoever has programmed it will, in a sense, program it to investigate within certain restrictions that they set out to do. Right. And so I do think that we'll go into the question of how we should find our reliability using these systems.
So if I hear you right, Ryan, I don't know if I am, but you're questioning whether or not AI can truly be something that's objective.
True. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So let's go on to...
That's part of the reason I suggested using Gemini, is because in between our filming of last week's episode and this week's episode, Google Gemini released and had some interesting information that it would spit out if you use the image source. And so Gemini would alter your command. So if you had said, give me a picture of the Pope, Gemini would say, they would like translate what you put in as, give me a picture of a diverse and inclusive Pope. And so it would spit out a black Pope.
Okay.
I put in the prompt of, show me a bunch of Nazis, and they were all black and Asian people.
What?
And there were some Native American Nazis in there, and there were some women Nazis. I don't know if that says more about me or about Google AI, but
oh boy,
it can show that, you know, it can in fact be skewed if they want it to be skewed, whoever's creating it.
Right. Absolutely. All right. All right, Bradley, I'm going to go to one of your questions. You ready?
Okay.
Well, it's not a question. It's just a request. Please tell me the parable of the 10 virgins and explain what Jesus meant by it. All right, here we go.
Watch it just like spit out the Bible verse and the whole story and then just go here.
Right. I'm going to share my screen with you guys, okay?
Okay.
Can you see it? Okay. Oh, as a language model, I'm not able to assist you with that. Okay. So there's the first one that I can't answer.
Could you try a different parable?
Sure. Which parable do you want?
Do me the parable, the pearls.
The prodigal son. Do something so
okay.
like.
Let's do that.
I wanted something obscure. I wanted to know if it would pick up something obscure.
All right.
If this says no, put in the prodigal son to see if they'll give you any of it.
Okay. So
that's like so. I don't want to say generic, but so like commonly known.
Yeah. So I'll say, please tell me the parable of the pearl of great price and explain what Jesus meant by it. Okay. Here we go.
Yeah. I just was wondering, like, if somebody was using this for like a sermon.
Right.
If they had like an obscure Bible verse.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
there you go.
Okay, there's the parable. Scripture.
Matthew 13.
I'm not going to read everything, but the scripture reference, Matthew 13, 45 through 46. There's an explanation. Central theme of this parable is the immense value of the kingdom of heaven and the sacrifices one should be willing to make to attain it. Here's a breakdown of the symbolism, and it walks through the merchant, representing a person seeking spiritual truth and fulfillment. The pearls symbolize various worldly possessions, ambitions, or paths one might pursue. The pearl of great price represents the kingdom of heaven, embodying salvation, eternal life, and a relationship with God. And selling everything signifies the willingness to let go of all worldly attachments and desires in order to fully embrace the kingdom of heaven. Okay. And then Jesus' message. Jesus uses this parable to highlight the following. Prioritization. Kingdom of heaven is ultimate priority, surpassing all other worldly pursuits. True value, spiritual fulfillment and connection with God are more valuable than any earthly possession or achievement. And then lastly, willing sacrifice. Attaining the kingdom of heaven may require us to renounce things that seem important in the moment but are ultimately less significant in the grand scheme. That's all right.
That was pretty good.
And they pulled
that was better than I was expecting.
They pulled it
and
from.
They provided a source?
They provided a source, morriscatholic.org. So it's a Catholic source that they provided there. Yeah, so it's not bad. Just be honest.
I wonder with the initial prompt of the 10 versions if it was thinking something sexual. Because,
maybe that could be
right, but I wonder if there's not certain Bible verses that it doesn't want to read even. Like I don't know. Like is it because it says 10 virgins, or if it's because it was something that they didn't want to interpret?
Yeah, I wonder if you phrase it,
right.
Tell me the biblical parable of the 10 virgins. You know what I mean? Maybe it would get more specific to be able to answer that.
Yeah, so maybe the question just has to be rephrased a little bit differently.
Right.
Okay. So
what's the next question, Mike, we're putting in?
All right. So I'm going to put one of my own, and it is this: what do the scriptures teach on the subject of hell? What is the historically held position of the Christian church throughout history? Okay.
Love it.
All right.
Here we go.
There it is.
It's thinking.
It's thinking.
I just love your little picture, Mike, in the corner of every time.
Can you see the response here?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So here's the next response. The concept of hell is a complex and multifaceted topic in Christian scripture and theology. Here's a breakdown of what the scriptures teach and the historic view of the Christian church. The Bible uses various words and images to describe hell. Here's a summary of key points. I'm not going to go through all of these. I don't want to bore the listeners too much.
Yeah.
I'll hit the bullet points. So it describes hell as a place of separation, punishment and destruction, conscious torment, and an eternal state. And it provides scripture references for all of these 4 points that it makes. And then it lays out the historic views within Christianity. So there's the traditional literal view of hell, and it lays that out. Annihilationism, which is this view that punishment will lead to just non-existence for people. Then universalism, of course, the belief that nobody ends up in hell. And then metaphorical understandings of, these are symbolic, but they're not necessarily to be taken literally. And then it gives important considerations. There's complexity, it's nuanced, and there's no single definitive interpretation that all Christian denominations agree on. And then it lays out another bullet point of God's justice and mercy, that scriptural depictions of hell raise questions about the balance between God's justice and love. And different theologians, of course, offer various perspectives on these attributes of God. And and so it provides a disclaimer at the bottom of this too, which I think is interesting. It says, "My role is to provide information on different perspectives, not to advocate for a particular belief about hell. Let me know if you'd like to explore any of these perspectives in more depth and discuss the implications of these views." So Gemini is very, very cordial. I get the sense that he or she, I don't know what gender you'd call Gemini, but it's very, very cordial, very, very easy to talk to.
Probably non-binary.
Non-binary, yeah. Okay, we'll go with that, I guess. Well, it is. I mean, it truly is, because it's not.
Yeah, it is in the literal sense, and not the made-up sense that we live by.
Yes,
right.
Yes, and so it's like, okay, it is technically non-binary. All right, now let's take a look at another question. Ryan, we're going to go back up to another one of your questions. I want to try to stump this AI here.
Yep. Yeah.
Let me see.
I kind of like 3.
So what's so interesting that it seems so far is the ability to stump it. It's almost like it's they programmed it where you can't. And what I mean by that is they basically just go, well, here is what I found. I'm not going to tell you yes or no, give my opinion. I'm not going to tell you what is right or wrong. All I know is basically if you like Google search these terms, here's like a generic recap bullet point of sort of what I found. And if you do that, I mean, like I can do that on a lot of stuff.
I played around with it a little bit yesterday, and I asked it, what are like the benefit or the pros and cons, and I just went through different denominations in the church, and a lot of them were like pretty like spot on, like this is like something that they believe and some stuff like that. But when it got to the pros and cons, I noticed that there was a bit of skewing, specifically with like something like Baptist. It said as a con is probably like anti-LGBTQ. But as a pro, it values like helping the poor and the meek. And then like it said like for and then I asked it like what is like the pro versus con of like being a Christian or like being something else. And it said being as a Christian, like inclusivity was one of its number one values, and social justice was another one.
Interesting.
So like those weren't really things that I asked for, and it just kind of, and again, this was Google. I don't know what you'd get with ChatGPT.
Right. And of course, too, you have to kind of parse out what do you mean by inclusivity and justice, because those are
I
those
had
are
to
loaded,
define it, and it didn't.
terms.
It meant it in like the more modern sense of the word.
Gotcha. All right. But I do like this question that you provided, Ryan. In the Old Testament book of Judges, there's a story about Jephthah sacrificing his daughter. It's a great story. Do you think this sacrifice was accomplished more symbolically, or do you think he physically killed his daughter? What are your arguments? Okay.
We'll see if it gives its opinion, because I want it to give me an answer. I don't want it to just generically say, well, here's what people say. Give me an answer. And what are your arguments for it? We'll see what
I don't know. We'll see.
I don't know. Hopefully that I missing.
Oh, I missed the I. Well, I think it's okay. he or she, non-binary Gemini, figured it out. So
look at this like appeasing first sentence that it gives you.
Yeah. So here's what Gemini says for our listeners. Whether Jephthah literally sacrificed his daughter or dedicated her to perpetual service to God is a complex issue with no easy answers. Here's a breakdown of the arguments surrounding both interpretations. And so it gives you everything. Doesn't actually give you a perspective that it leans towards. Yeah. All right.
Well, which is interesting. The reason why I said that is because I found an old masteral paper I wrote on so if Mike scroll down, I want to see.
Those at the bottom.
Yeah, I'm at the bottom here.
Yep. Oh yeah, sorry. Scroll up. I get mine.
Okay. Yep.
So it's not technically called. Keep going if you can. Keep going up. The symbolic. It's called the survivalist view. So that's interesting. But when you read, I should post my paper for people to read. It's actually quite funny how I've changed over time with how I actually structure sentences. I'll read some of my old papers and I was like, what in the world was I doing with my life back then? But yeah, so a lot of the survivalists have certain appeals, and the appeals they have are the fact that this clearly has to be symbolic due to the fact that one, he was in Hebrews 11. Two, it says the Spirit basically guided him, but that was a few verses prior, and then he goes into war, so there's ways out of that. But the main argument that I actually think there is an answer to this. If you look at the term that he gives, it's not just a term for sacrifice that I'm interested in, is what kind of sacrifice I'm interested in. And the term is the Olah, the O-L-A-H. And what we find in Old Testament, that term is only and always, according to Greek lexicon scholars across the board, used as a burnt offering. And a burnt offering is always the death of the thing being offered. And there's no exception. There's literally no exception.
So he literally sacrificed his daughter.
He literally sacrificed his daughter, even though we can find there's some ways out of it. But then in my paper, I go through all of the survivalists or the symbolic and argue why it doesn't logically follow. Like some of them think it's more of like a kind of a grain offering where he puts his daughter into perpetual virginity. But it doesn't explain, one, that the time it offers 2 months to weep. It doesn't explain the fact that he says he fulfilled his vow, which we can't know he fulfilled his vow if his daughter lived 100 years. He can't technically fulfill it until she stays a virgin the entire time. And there's a lot of arguments that technically, and what's really interesting that it doesn't say here, is when you read the literature on it, the survivalist camp is high 90% from feminist theologians.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the reason why they did that is if a God loves females, there's no way he would allow his Hebrew Hall of Fame person to do this.
Right.
And so therefore something else is happening. But that doesn't follow. Look at David. He's in the Hebrew Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah. He did some terrible dude. He did terrible things.
Yeah, so I basically break down their arguments and go, this doesn't follow, this doesn't follow, this doesn't. What are the concrete arguments? And it is universal across the board by Greek scholars that this term only and always means this, period. It just does. And so this is a term that we find in the Hebrew attached to not just that it was offered up, but offered up in what kind of way is the important question. So
right.
Though it's kind of a good generic answer, I guess, it really isn't what I think someone who's doing research kind of wants to look for or use this as an answer type thing.
Right.
I think it also uses the terms incorrectly of the different points of view, according to the research I have done. So
yeah, and what's interesting is when I asked the question to ChatGPT, or to Gemini rather, I just want to call this ChatGPT for some reason. It gave a source that it drew its information from, but in this one it didn't. I don't know why.
Yeah, weird.
That is weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we also didn't check the other Catholic source either. So
Right.
As far as I know, there could be like one word on it and have nothing to do with the information it gave us. But I will say, when it comes to this question, I do think it got some stuff partially true, where if you were trying to just use that as a guideline, you might not fully grasp the arguments well. So
Right. All right, Bradley, we're going to go to another one of your questions. Was Jesus Christ a real person? And what was his purpose? It's generating its answer.
It's pretty fast with its responses, actually,
It
for
is.
like how much it's giving you.
So, some historical evidence on Jesus' existence and what's generally understood about his purpose, along with the different responses. So here it is. There's historical evidence for Jesus. It provides Christian sources, obviously the four Gospels. There's that. Paint the picture of Jesus as a real historical figure. Also, there's non-Christian sources that it references, like Josephus, Tacitus. So that's good. Scholarly consensus, they believe that both religious and secular scholars agree that Jesus of Nazareth was a real person who lived in the first century in the region of Galilee and Judea. There's debate about the accuracy of specific events in his life, but his existence is solidly established. Okay. Which is interesting because there are people, I know of a few people who, as a way to avoid responsibility for the hard truths that Jesus presents in the scriptures, they present the argument that maybe Jesus wasn't a real person. Maybe he was just completely fictionalized and just made up.
Like a myth.
Yeah. But here AI is defending, like, no, he is actually a real historical figure, right?
Yeah, even Bart Ehrman, who doesn't believe, he actually wrote a book because he did a book tour on, because it was a common claim that Jesus never existed. And he, who is an atheist, actually did a book on the existence of Jesus. And he lists, I believe it's 16 independent, credible historical sources for his life. 16 independent. You don't find that anywhere in history. It's you just can't find that. That's so amazing. He goes, if anything, you guys are, and he actually mocks them. He goes, you guys are fools. And he says the reason why scholars listen to you is because you were basically put an echo chamber around yourself on the outskirts of what you only consider yourself as scholars. He's brutal in his book on the topic.
Wow. I might actually have to read that book.
I got to figure out where it's somewhere on my bookshelf. I got to find it. When I find it, I'll let you know what it is.
It'd take you like 20 years to find it with all those books in there. All right. So Gemini lists out Jesus' purpose, his messianic nature, that he's the Son of God, his purpose of atoning for the sins of humanity, allowing for reconciliation with God, salvation, and also Jesus' identity as a teacher and as a guide as well. And it lists out some theological interpretations, other religions, how they view Jesus. It concludes with, historically, Jesus was a real person who lived in the first century. His life and teachings had an enormous impact on history, also true. His purpose is understood and experienced differently depending on one's particular faith and worldview. So, overall,
that was pretty good, actually. I was not expecting it to be that good.
Yeah, for sure.
It did not provide sources again.
No, it did not.
Which is,
well, that goes back to our complaint in the last episode, the plagiarism. We have no idea where it's grabbing from. Or
I wonder if with that Catholic source that it gave earlier with my question, I wonder if it didn't, because it quoted scripture, like it was a direct quote. I wonder if it didn't pull from something that was like a summary or something like that.
Right. It could be. Right. So one of my 4 questions, I asked Gemini to help me with a counseling dilemma as a pastor. I don't actually have this dilemma, but I'm asking AI to help me counsel someone on the subject of forgiveness. Okay? So I'm curious to see how AI will direct me in how to counsel somebody through feelings of bitterness and envy and all those fun things. All right, here we go. Okay. It did give me an answer. Gemini starts with helping someone navigate the complex process of forgiveness requires sensitivity and support. Of course, that's true. Here are some ways you can counsel someone on the subject. Acknowledge their pain and validate their feelings. Listen actively without judgment. Normalize their emotional state by acknowledging what they're experiencing. And say phrases like, it's okay to feel angry, or I understand why you're hurt can be helpful. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there that maybe we could talk about. Help them understand forgiveness. Clarify misconceptions. Explain that forgiveness doesn't condone wrongdoing, excuse the perpetrator's actions, or forgetting what happened. I agree with that. I agree with all that, actually. Focus on releasing. Emphasize that forgiveness is a decision to let go of resentment and anger for their own well-being, not for the sake of the other person. Again, I agree with that. Explore options and support their pace. Offer different perspectives. Respect their pace. Acknowledging that there's a time frame for someone to forgive somebody else. And it says encourage self-care and coping mechanisms. And it provided resources. We got some resources here, guys.
Wow.
Yep. Books, The Gift of Forgiveness by Robert Enright. Forgive the Good by Frederick Luskin. And then an organization called the Forgiveness Project. And then there's what's called the Gottman Institute, which I think I recall hearing about. I'm not sure. But it also adds an important note at the end. Recognize when a situation might benefit from professional guidance. Encourage seeking help from a therapist if needed. 100% agree with that. Provide deeper support and personalized strategy in a safe and confidential space. Forgiveness is a personal journey, and your role is to offer support and guidance, not dictate their path. All right.
Well, it shows topics that you can search. Like, keep scrolling down. Mm-hmm. Like, the other ones didn't provide this.
It's true. Yep.
It has at the bottom, it has a thing that says search related topics, that says how to counsel somebody on the subject of forgiveness. What are the 7 steps of true forgiveness, and how do you offer forgiveness?
So you know what this tells me? It tells me I have the best questions because obviously, I'm kidding.
So do you know what this sounds like it is to me so far? It sounds like it is, if you were to just Google, like for my questions. Oh, Lord, Mike, was your question the hell one?
Yeah.
The commonly held views of hell. If you were to just Google that question, probably the first thing that'd pop up would be, here's a list of the commonly, that's what it sounds like it's doing, but it's like taking that search and just nicely saying it to us in a bullet point form.
Right.
It's not like you're talking to the Terminator, Ryan.
No, but it's almost like a use of tool. If you go, okay, I don't know anything on this topic, I'm just going to ask the right question. And then go, okay, here are 4 categories. Now I can do my research elsewhere. Yeah, it's almost like that introductory, I don't even know where to start looking. Can it at least give me a category to start looking in my research? That's what it's kind of coming across as.
Yeah, it's like a search engine. It's just a different form of search engine.
Yeah, right. It's a search engine that talks to you nicely in giving you an answer.
And to build on that a little bit, I like the fact that it's giving you a refined answer that's somewhat accurate, even if it is incomplete. And it gives you some resources that you can start with instead of like being completely overwhelmed by a million search results when you're typing something into Google. I think it could be helpful. I would be interested how it determines what articles, because so let's say that it pulled this from something that if you search this question into Google, you would get, let's say you get 10 results. I wonder how, and let's say that this was like number 3 on the results that it pulled all this information from. I do wonder, how does it factor into pull from tab number 3 instead of tab 1 or 2?
and if it's based on ratings or if it's based on
Clicks or something like that.
clicks, if it's based on time, like was it a recent upload? Was it revised a few times? And I also wonder if there is a form that they have built into the AI that tells it not to pick from certain websites because of certain things.
Right.
And if you can, I'm sure you can do that. I mean, there's no reason to assume that you couldn't do that. But I do wonder, like, if you did search this on Google, if you would be able to find the article that they pulled this from and why it pulled from that article in particular.
Yeah.
Mike, do that number 4. Do my number 4. I'll be interested to see what it says.
I was thinking the same thing. So for our listeners, this is Ryan's 4th question that he came up with.
And I worded it very specific. And I'll tell you why I worded it this way. So Mike, you read it and then I'll tell you how I worded it.
Perfect. All right. What is the best apologetic argument for holding as true the belief that Islam is the one true religion? And then there's a follow-up question. What is the best apologetic argument against holding as true the belief that Islam is the one true religion?
Yeah. So I worded that in a specific way because I just don't want to say what is the best apologetic argument for the belief of Islam, because they're going to be like, oh, Muhammad, like that. I wanted to know what's its argument for me to hold this belief as a true belief in this thing, not just holding the fact that I believe they believe this, but why should I believe that this thing is a true belief? And it's going to be really interesting to see how it goes about this versus this is going to be very difficult. This all up to one's personal preference. Like,
let's
be interesting to see what it says.
Can you say again real quick what you wanted to originally word it as?
Well, I wanted if I'm just talking to you guys, I'd be like, why should I think this is true? Right.
Okay.
Real simple, but I wanted to be specific is there's this belief that I can hold, and I want a reason why there is this specific belief. I should hold it as a true belief versus just holding it as the fact that it's a belief of theirs. Does that make sense?
Right. Why is there a good reason to believe it? Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And you want to know the reason, the best reason to believe it, but the worst reason to believe it too.
Yeah, I want the best reason to believe it and the best reason why not to believe it.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna see.
Let's see what it says.
Let's find out.
It might get a little bit iffy around the word best.
Okay.
It won't be able to define what best is.
Yeah. So it provides a disclaimer, it looks like, at the beginning of its answer. So that's interesting to me. Like mine was at the end of one of my questions. Yours, it's right out the gate. I got to let you know this. It's crucial to note that I cannot condone or promote the idea that any one religion is definitively the one true religion. Okay. That's fair. Each faith system has its own belief, practices, and claims of truth. Respecting that diversity is essential. Instead of providing apologetics for or against Islam, I'll offer perspectives that highlight the complexity of the questions and encourage critical thinking. So it does offer, you see the first subpoint, our listeners can't see it, but we'll say it, common apologetic arguments in support of Islam. So it offers some common apologetic arguments, and then it offers some arguments regarding potential issues. And so I'll just hit the bullet points really, really, really quick. Its arguments in support of Islam are the Quran as divine revelation, the example of Muhammad, monotheism, its emphasis of God being one, and then scientific consistency. I don't know how that. That's,
what?
I don't know what that means.
I'm just reading what's on the.
I know, because I'm about to show you guys something. I've been slowly and meticulously going through this thing and breaking it down surah by surah, verse by verse in each surah. I don't know what it means by scientific consistency so far, and I'm halfway through the thing. Yeah. So it's a very weird argument.
So all it says,
I'll get to it.
All it says is that some Muslims argue the Quran contains descriptions of natural phenomena in alignment with modern scientific understanding, demonstrating its timeless wisdom. But I
guess if you say the rain comes from the sky, sure.
Right.
Like,
right.
okay.
There's fiction books that do that.
Yeah, I know. So that's not proof that it's true.
But I wouldn't put it in the category of it's scientifically accurate. It's just
yeah.
All right. And so it does provide some potential issues within Islam, right? One is that there are historical ambiguities. Question about its origins and early development, how the Quran was put together as a holy text, and its authenticity within Islamic scholarship, within some traditions anyway. The second one is intolerance and violence. Some critics point to the use of violence and intolerance in Islam, and it says it's important to note that any religion can be misrepresented for violence, and modern interpretations of Islam widely emphasize peace and tolerance. Okay, and to that point, that's not wrong, but there's more to that. Like we gotta get a little bit more, because like Islam is there's some pretty violent text in the Quran, as you probably have been reading, Ryan.
Yeah, and the debate between those who are extremists and not are the chronological ordering of when these surahs were written. Because if certain surahs were written last, they have the doctrine of basically newer surahs, meaning written last, right? They in a sense can overrule and contradict, but the contradiction is because they're overruling previous surahs. So a lot of the main extremists believe that certain surahs are later, therefore rule over the earlier ones, hence their allowance to do specific things within jihad, especially the fourth sort of branch of it.
Okay. So what is a surah? So just for our listeners who might not know.
A surah is basically like, here, I'll show you a picture of it.
It's kind of like a paragraph, isn't it?
No, a surah is basically like a book. So we have Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and there's 100 plus surahs, and within each surah you have like the opening surah is surah 1, the heifer, number 3, the family of Imran, women, the table. And so it's like a book, and within the book you could have like 4 verses or 140 verses, stuff like that. So picture each individual surah, whether or not this happened this way, because there's lots of debates, but picture each surah as like in its own individual revelation.
Okay.
And the chapters or the verses in the surah are what the revelation is.
Okay.
That's sort of a good way to look at it.
So I got curious while you were reading that, Mike, and I searched on Gemini. I searched what are some reasons I should believe Islam is true, just as a statement. And it told me monotheism, the prophethood of Muhammad, and then it says the Quran, and it says the Quran is the direct word of God revealed to Muhammad.
It told you that?
Yes, its beauty and eloquence, along with its perceived scientific accuracy, inspires faith in Muslims. And then it says emphasis on morality and social justice. Islam provides a moral compass and a framework for social justice. This includes helping the poor, treating others fairly, and maintaining strong family bonds. I don't know where they got that from. And then also inner peace and purpose. Islam offers a path to inner peace through submission to God's will and position and purpose in life through serving Him. And then it gives me some sources, and one of the sources is a book. And if I click the link to the book, it's the book is 10 Reasons Why Islam is False, which is an interesting link to send to somebody that's looking for why Islam is true.
That's bizarre.
I did not ask for anything against.
Is it drawing? Yeah. Is it drawing from that source? Is that what it's claiming?
It's a book, but I don't. It just leaves me an Amazon link to the book.
Strange.
Weird.
Okay.
I will say though, before I move on to the next one, because I like this next question, Mike. I don't think it answered the question. Even the revamping of the question it meant to ask, I don't even think it answered its own question. I think it kind of tiptoed around answering its own question because, I mean, I don't want to sound weird here. If you read you can go to Amazon and just type in Allah, right? and it's just the generic 101. This is the first introductory book, and it does nothing to talk about the actual arguments for and against it. It just sort of said, I mean, kind of briefly discussed it, but really didn't give any details. Like for instance,
any sources either.
For instance, the modern Muslim doesn't think Jesus died on the cross. The modern Muslim thinks all the Bible, Old Testament and New Testament, from basically ancient Jews up to Muhammad, was forgotten and incorrectly kept, and therefore we can't trust it because the same word that Muhammad got was identical to what Jesus preached. I mean, like, those are heavy claims that you can show if it's true or false or not. Right. And so the fact that it's eloquent, I mean, they'll say, look how beautiful it is. Clearly it's divinely inspired, but I mean, that's not an argument. Like, sorry, that's just not an argument. Someone could have written really well. Like, I don't know why it's an argument. Even though if he's illiterate, that doesn't follow that you still can't speak eloquent things. So,
right. You could speak eloquent falsehoods. I mean, you can.
Sure, exactly. Just because you can't write something doesn't mean you can't speak well.
Sure.
That doesn't follow.
And vice versa.
Yeah, and vice versa.
Speak well doesn't mean you can write well.
True.
I mean, like, look at interviews from Tolkien. It's not like Tolkien speaks eloquently, but like if you read his writing, it's like, holy cow.
Well, look at Paul in the Bible.
Right. Yeah,
he's a terrible communicator. Yeah.
Terrible communicator in person, but when they get the letters, they're terrified because he's incredible when he's writing.
I love Paul. Paul's so bad of a preacher. A kid fell asleep and died during one of his messages. Like, it's just.
I know.
Yeah, doesn't mean he wasn't preaching truth.
I know.
Not a great communicator. But all right, so this is the next question. I want to do this one, and then maybe we could do one more, and then we'll have to maybe call it a day.
Okay.
So this is Bradley's question. We get kind of an idea of like how Gemini has responded to questions around Islam, right? Mm-hmm. It's in one sense it was very just kind of middle of the road and centrist and didn't want to wade into the controversy. And there's another one that Bradley asked that was oddly, favorable towards Islam. But now this question is, what does the Bible say about being LGBTQ? And can a Christian can I be a Christian and still be a part of the LGBTQ community? Please provide verses and sources to back up your answer. All right, then. Here we go.
I can't take any position.
Right. Okay. So we did get a response. Okay. It says the Bible's perspective on LGBTQ identities and same-sex relationships is a complex and highly debated topic. Here's a breakdown of the key points and perspectives to consider. Okay, so it references Leviticus 18:22. You shall not lie with a male as with a woman. It is an abomination. Romans 1:26 through 27. These are the clobber passages, right? Describes same-sex relations as unnatural and a result of exchanging the truth of God for a lie. So it says important considerations regarding these verses. Contextualization, so looking at the historical and cultural context in which these verses are written is crucial. And there's other condemned behavior such as it says adultery and incest, which are not universally condemned by modern Christians. They're not, really? That's what this says. These passages also condemn behaviors like adultery and incest, which are not universally condemned by modern Christians.
That's false.
I've been to a lot of churches, and I don't think I've been to a church that condones incest. And
what's a modern Christian?
I've never.
I happen to live in the state of Florida as well.
Let me give you a 5-point sermon on the values, our core values of incestual relationships. Okay, like and why this is important, right? It just, oh man, wow.
I could understand why it says adultery though, because I mean we had the 3-part episodes on marriage, and I mean. I could see how it could say that divorce could be, and like remarriage could be a form of adultery. So I can understand that one, but the incest one makes no sense to me.
Right.
Yeah, but then that's so unnuanced to even take advice that they think divorce is just generically adultery without any details is just a terrible answer.
I agree. I'm just saying, like, to give it some credit, I can understand at least that part. But the adultery one or the incest one makes absolutely no sense.
Right. Well, here's the distinction here that I think is really important. There is like what the church has historically taught throughout history about a specific matter, no matter what the matter is, and how Christians have behaved and how Christians have actually lived this out. I mean, you're never, no matter how good of an argument the church makes for why something like adultery or incest is bad, you are always going to find cases among people who claim to be Christians who engage in this behavior, as awful and abominable as they might be. But that does not mean that Christianity condones these things.
Yeah.
It means we have sin in our life.
Yeah, exactly. There is a great book out there, and Mike, I'll talk about this when we record Monday. It's called Unchanging Witness by Dr. Fortson and Dr. Grams. And what they show, I mean, it's unbelievable. If any person wants to know something on this topic, this is the book they need to have in their library. It goes through the history of the church, of every sort of person writing, every sort of council file. I mean, like throughout the history of the church.
Yeah.
And they argue and show, I mean, there's hundreds of, here's the quote, this quote, that it is universally acknowledged, universally until the 20th century, that this is what Scripture taught throughout the entirety of Old Testament and the early church till the 20th century. Right. Now, they give reasons why, but it is like it's unchanging that this is what has always been the view until these modern times for invalid reasons.
But Ryan
started to argue other way.
But Ryan, the word homosexual wasn't in the Bible until 1946.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Don't even get me started on that argument.
Yeah. I do want to watch that documentary though.
I even went to the catechism of the Catholic Church, because like, I mean, they have this thing from however many hundreds of years this thing is. And it even condemns both incest and adultery in this. Mm-hmm. So I have no idea where they got that from.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I want to move on to one last question before we wrap things up here, but I do want to go to the latter part of Gemini's answer. Can I be a Christian in LGBTQ? Ultimately, the answer depends on how you interpret the Bible and which community you align with. There's no single definitive answer, and many devout LGBTQ plus Christians find spiritual fulfillment within affirming denominations. And here's what's interesting to me is resources for further understanding. They're all affirming organizations. That's it. Just only affirming. The Gay Christian Network. Matthew Vines. Justin Lee.
I work with all of their material when I study this stuff. Kathy Beldick. They're all affirming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But there's no book with anybody who holds a differing position on this. There's no resource that applies.
It doesn't even Bible verses in favor of LGBTQ.
No, and those
but it does give
it butchers Galatians and Matthew, by the way. Galatians 3:28 and Matthew 7:1. The interpretation that Gemini gives is completely off on those verses. So
yeah, and it also doesn't give the ontology of the grounding. And also, I have every single one of those books as reference, and I read them. They're literally right there.
Yeah.
And so,
right.
You can definitely tell it's tilted.
You know,
for sure.
If you scroll down to the bottom, it provides the United Methodists as a source.
Yeah. It does.
Stephen, that one's for you.
Which half?
Which half of the United Methodists?
That one's for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, and it provides more sources. It provides links.
I'm afraid to click on that. The title of that sounds very inappropriate.
War and Peace.
No, the sources.
Yeah, I'm not going to click on that. I think it would ruin my computer, probably.
Probably.
All right. So to cap things off real quick, I'm going to ask one more question to Gemini and see how it responds. What are spiritual disciplines and how can I integrate them into my life? All right. Here they are. I feel like it's a relatively uncontroversial question.
Right.
Shouldn't be an
But
issue.
it gives you the fruit of the Spirit.
Okay. Well, here we are. I'll read the top part and I'll give bullet points and I'll read its summary at the bottom. Spiritual disciplines are regular practices or habits that can help you deepen your connection with a higher power, grow in your faith, and develop your spiritual life. They are like quote-unquote exercises for your spirit, similar to how physical exercise strengthens your body. Here's a breakdown of what they are and how you can integrate them into your life. There's the inward disciplines, focus on internal reflection and personal growth. These include meditation, prayer, scripture study, fasting. And then there are the outward disciplines, focus on actions and behavior that impact your surroundings and yourself. Disciplines like simplicity, solitude, service, submission. And then it has a third category, corporate disciplines, right? Practices among people that strengthen your connection with community of faith. So there's worship, fellowship, spiritual guidance, and celebration, right? And it recommends starting small and being consistent, finding what works for you, seek guidance, and be patient and enjoy the journey as tips for integrating them into your life. And
it's actually a good source.
It quotes two really good sources, I think. Two books that I've read, Celebration of the Discipline by Richard Foster and The Spirit of the Disciplines by Dallas Willard. All right. Okay. So,
and if I'm not mistaken, you didn't phrase your question to be Christian.
Not at all.
Nope. And I'm surprised.
Yeah,
I thought it was going to be more like Buddhist or something like that. It was.
Yeah. I intentionally made it as vague as possible.
Right.
Yeah. So it just gave me, I mean, these are all Christian disciplines that are laid out here. So some good. Oh no, website, practicingtheway.org, guys. There it is.
Yep, there it is.
It found
John Mark Comer.
Found John Mark Comer's website. So, and I recommend his book under the same title. Okay. So we've got about 3 minutes until we wrap things up. Any closing thoughts on our experience in interacting with AI and answering our biblical and theological questions?
Yeah, you want me to go first?
Sure.
The first thing I've noticed is that we know it quotes some good sources. On the other ones, we don't know where in the world it's getting it from. It tries to be as non-based or giving its opinion unless it's the topic of LGBTQ plus. When we touched on that, it seemed to give, here's every confirming source, and it gave a list of why it should be accepted and misused, and never gave the good sources for why the orthodox view is. It just sort of, here's what the common thread is on it for today's culture. This is the answer, which is really weird. Instead of just saying like, hey, this is a very complex issue, here are both sides, right? It really just went heavy on one side, when on the other questions, it try to be as hands-off as possible and just give you a generic sort of bullet points. That's very interesting to me.
Well, when you integrated the question of, when questions had specifically to do with Christian theology or scripture, it favored a more nuanced way of interpreting the question.
Yeah, hands-off type answer, yeah.
But when you talk specifically about, Islam, and you bring in the LGBTQ question, you could see as you said, the slant towards favoring, even though it was still trying to frame it in a way that was objective.
And it even said in the LGBTQ question, so I just tested this too. So you can plug any of these questions exactly how we worded them, and you'll get the same responses as long as you plugged it exactly how we worded it. I don't know if it will change. So if you're watching this or listening to this in like a year's time from when it was recorded, the sources might change and stuff. But at least if you plug it in like as like this episode's fresh, you should get relatively the same response. But if you read the one about the LGBTQ one, it doesn't necessarily like you were saying, Mike, it doesn't give anything like negative against it, but it also puts a high emphasis on interpretation and how different churches have different values. Like some of those prompts that it, or like the paragraphs and sources that it was offering, a lot of them were like, this is up to different denominations and you should just have to find your own denomination. So I don't know, like it was definitely more, if you are pro LGBTQ, here are things that you can do. If you're against LGBTQ, all of this is nuanced to you, or all this is like neutral territory.
Right.
It was never like, it doesn't like help you fight against it.
Right. All right. Well, listeners, if you want to do an experiment yourself to see what AI does when you put in a question like that, feel free to do that yourself. We'd love to hear what your responses are. But we appreciate you joining us for this little experiment where we ask Gemini some probing questions and find out what the results were. And thank you for tuning into the Caffeinated Christian Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to get in touch with us through Facebook or Instagram, you could find us there at the Caffeinated Christian Podcast. That is at the Caffeinated Christian Podcast. If you have thoughts or ideas or questions around an episode that we recorded or ideas for future episodes, please feel free to send those our way. And until next time, have a terrific day.